Hello and welcome. Another edition of our Thursday Coaches Corner. Coach Serrano ramping up his playing season, but he will be back joining us next week. Today, I'm excited to talk with one of the preeminent head coaches within the SEC. No stranger to the SEC, having been an assistant coach and now head coach at Missouri. Kerrick Jackson. And Kerrick, I want to say thank you for taking the time to join me. I know you're busy getting ready for your season to kick off here in a few weeks.
No, Walter, I appreciate you having me on.
You know, one of the really big questions that I wanted to kind of kick things off. You've had history and experience as an assistant coach at Missouri. You obviously know the past presence within the storied baseball program. You have an understanding of the SEC, but now making your way into your second year as head coach at Missouri, how do you go about building a culture at Missouri, to kind of build and put your thumbprint on the program as you go forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is getting our guys to understand the history of the program. Obviously, we haven't been to a regional since 2012. And so kids nowadays, they live in 10-minute windows, right? 10 minutes in front of them and 10 minutes behind them. And anything outside of that really doesn't matter. And so getting them to understand what we were built on and how we went about it. And, when you look at the University of Missouri and you go back to the Big Eight, you go back to the Big 12 and now the SEC, Missouri's never had the best facilities. They've never had the biggest budget. They've never been in the ideal weather situation, right? But there was always a toughness about this place, and guys grasped and held on to that toughness. And when you look at some of our guys that are in the big leagues and were here during that string of 7 consecutive regionals, there was a toughness factor. And so one of the things that we're really, really trying to emphasize in our culture is, again, what you have is opportunity. And that's all you can ask for. And what you do with that opportunity is solely up to you. And so when you look at it in the scope of where we are in the SEC specifically, you know this to be true. Many people look at the SEC and think that it's a talent-rich league, and it's you have your upper level guys, and those are your upper level guys. Those are the best guys in the country, whatever league they'd be playing in, right? They end up being big leaguers. But when you look at the conference across the board, it's good college talent, but they play at elite level. Not everybody throws 96 miles an hour. Not everybody hits 30 home runs. Not everybody steals 20 bags. The average player in this conference is the average player, but their skill level is elite, which allows them to go out and be in the best conference in the country. And the experience also that you've had, again, big leaguers. The guys that are playing on TV are not the most talented guys to ever play the game. They're the guys that have an elite skill level and can play the game as consistent as anyone can play the game. And so that's what I'm trying to get our guys to understand is when you look at this league and we're going across it, the other team, doesn't matter who's in the other dugout, they have no impact on your ability to throw strikes. They have no impact on your ability to play defense, and they have no impact on your ability to have quality at bats or play the game hard and play the game the right way. And if we control those things, then we put ourselves in a position where we can do anything that we want to do.
I think this is really, I've been anxious to ask you this question. I've followed your coaching career through Memphis, Southern, and then obviously back to Missouri. But you have a unique perspective in today's landscape of college baseball, especially with the new roster limits, that looming ahead. You have to really have a key evaluation, the ability to evaluate not only present skill sets, but projectable skill sets. And your scouting background comes into play. Is that something that you as a staff are going to take tremendous pride in as far as really being able to evaluate the skill, not only that is present, but the projectable at the SEC caliber of play?
Oh, without a doubt. Again, I know what it is and where we are. We're the Oakland A's of the SEC, right? Like we're that Moneyball team. We gotta do it a little different, right? We're not the sexy choice. We're not the cutest girl in the room, and so based on that, we have to find the guys that have the right fit, the guys that can come out and play this game, that have a high baseball IQ, and then like you said, when you talk about projection, we got to find those guys that may be a little bit under the radar, and that's something that we've always done here. When you look back over our history. The guy that I use an example all the time, and I think he was playing when Tyler was playing, is Josh Lester, right? Like Josh Lester was from Columbus, Georgia. He had 2 high school All-Americans on his team that were recruited by everybody in the country. We were Josh Lester's only 4-year offer. He had no 4-year offers at all. This dude is all freshman SEC, plays every position on the infield his freshman year in the SEC, only makes 3 errors, starts as a shortstop, by no means a shortstop, but he played shortstop for us his sophomore year. And then his junior year, he gets drafted. And then 3 years later, he hits 25 pumps. And then 2 years later, he's in the big leagues. So we have to find the Josh Lesters of the world. We have to find those guys that are under the radar type guys. TJ Sikkema was a undersized left-handed pitcher from a 1A high school in Iowa, and guy's going to be a big leaguer and ends up being a first-team All-American and one of the best pitchers in the SEC. And so that's who we are, and we have to hold on to that identity, embrace that identity, and use that, right, to go out and not look for the guys that necessarily have the best talent, but the guys that have the best projectable skill with talent.
One of the things that, I try to do with regard to promoting the sport at the collegiate level is to talk to high school athletes or younger athletes that have that dream and they aspire to play within college. And I want you to talk a little bit about the accessibility at the younger levels and why that is so critical, not only to help build the foundation of dreams for younger athletes, but really to promote college. Because really, if we think about it, becoming a big leaguer is almost a major miracle. The access now has become much more limited with regard to professional opportunities, contraction of minor leagues, draft picks, et cetera. But college baseball, top to bottom, from JUCO to the SEC, what are some of the ideas, or what would you like to see begin to happen at the younger levels of the sport to make the sport more accessible for younger athletes to be able to participate in?
I think it obviously has to start with quality coaching, right? And having coaching at those younger levels that is developmentally focused. I have 2 boys that are 12 and 13. And I'm going to games. I remember when we were at Southern during COVID, Louisiana was probably the only state that didn't shut down. Like they kept doing everything, right?
Live there,
so,
no.
Yeah. So we're at an 8U coach pitch tournament. There's a 14 or 15-year-old umpire behind the plate, and the kids are playing, and parents are up on the fence and getting upset because of the balls and strikes that he's calling, and we're celebrating. And I understand the idea of the celebration, but we're celebrating kids scoring runs based on the idea that the other team can't play catch, not because their players put the ball in play. And so it's just looking at that, and the coaches yelling at the kids and yelling at the umpire. And I turned to my wife and I said, man, you know what? I'm sure glad that I coach college baseball, because this 8U job security must be tough. Like it must be a tough gig with the stress level that I'm feeling at this 8U game. So I'm glad I'm in college and I don't have to worry about it. But that's where I think it starts. And I've talked to some different people, and I know that probably this horse is out of the barn, but I really wish we could go back and reframe what we're doing from T-ball at 5 years old till about 10 years old, and how we're playing the game and how we're instructing the game. There shouldn't be any wins and losses. There shouldn't be any, my boys would come home and say, oh, Daddy, we won. I said, how can you win a game you don't know how to play? You have no idea. You didn't win. You didn't win the game. You don't know how to play the game. You couldn't have possibly won a game you don't know how to play. So I think when you talk about that, if we could really get back to the idea of teaching these kids how to play the game, then I think we will actually see a better product on the back end of it. But we're so consumed with having the best 10U team in the country. You don't have the best 10U team in the country. Like, what are we talking about, right? And talking about kids, oh, he throws 70 miles an hour. So we're just setting kids up for failure at that point. So putting the emphasis back on development, putting the emphasis back on baseball, increasing their baseball IQ, and those types of things.
So this is perfect, because this is kind of the direction I was hoping you might take, and I really want parents. I think we, as people that have played the game, participated, now coaching, we are the passers of the batons. It used to be when I was a kid, dinosaurs roamed the earth. The players that played in the 70s, and they were passing on their knowledge to us in hopes that we would continue the sport and the passion and the desire. Now it's all about look how smart I am. Look how my way is better than their way. And at the end of the day, it's a sport that's been around for going on almost close to 2 centuries now. And at the collegiate level, what are some of the things you wish the high school athletes would spend more time on? Meaning, are we really that worried about exit velocity off of a tee or run and gun velocities into a net? I mean, talk a little bit about what you'd like to see high school athletes really begin to spend more time on as they begin to prepare for that transition into college.
Yeah, I think kind of the same deal, right? Like we're teaching our kids what a one-way lead is. They don't know what a one-way lead is. And then explaining to them the purpose of a one-way lead. A one-way lead is you get off, you find out what the pitcher's best move is. We're delayed in our secondary. The idea of you holding still or going back to the base is where we're at, so we can figure out what this guy's move is. Because once we know what his move is and you're comfortable with that, and then we know what the times are to the plate, you can put yourself in a better position to be able to steal. Right now, we don't have consistent leads. We don't know what a one-way lead is. We don't practice on steal jumps. We throw the ball to the wrong bases. We don't understand the idea of, hey, there's a runner on first. There's a ball hitting the gap. The guy's got a good jump. You're still after the runner has touched third. You're in right center field. You're looking at his numbers. You're still going to try and throw that guy out at third base when you're a left-handed thrower, ball to the right center gap. The ball's taking you away from your throwing side, and you think you can throw that guy out. We throw the ball over the cutoff man's head. The batter runner advances to second base, and we don't understand, hey, just throw. He went first and third. Dude got a single. It is what it is. Give it to him. Now keep the runner off first base so we can turn a double play and get out of the inning. But instead, we try and get the guy at third. Guy advances. Now there's runners at second, third. Now we get a ground ball. They score a run. Now they get a single. Now they score another run. And so it's little things like that. On the pitcher side, one of the things we did with our pitchers this fall, and they hated it, I said the only data point that matters to me is outs. That's the only data we're keeping, is that we're keeping track of how many batters you face and how many outs you get in the batters you face. And if you're not a 60% clip or higher, I don't care how good your stuff is, you do us no good. If you face 20 batters and you only get 3 guys out, that's not very good. I need you to be a 60% clip or higher. So just the ability to understand the importance of getting outs. I don't care how you get them, just get outs as a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, the pureness of what you're saying, from a baseball perspective, it is so critical for parents and, more importantly, athletes to understand. They are fundamentals. They may be boring, but, base running is a critical component to winning baseball games at all levels of baseball. And one of the ancillary topics that I would love for you to cover is, can you talk about the value of repetition, meaning whether it's in a practice environment, but more importantly, as an individual, not necessarily with an instructor in a lesson or a cage, but the value of repetitions and why that leads to development as a baseball player?
Oh, without a doubt. We talk about the idea of you're developing habits. They're either good habits or they're bad habits, but either way, you're developing habits. And so we're getting our guys to understand, I want you to practice perfect. If you can't do it in practice, I can't make the assumption that you're going to be able to do it in a game. If we have a round in BP and we're hitting backside ground balls and you don't have the capability to hit a backside ground ball as a right-handed hitter or hit a pull side ground ball as a left-handed hitter when you need to, then that's telling me that with a runner on second base and nobody out, we get to 2 strikes or we're ahead in the count and it's just not a good day. You don't have an ability to do your job and help the team win by hitting the ball to the right side and moving that guy up. That when we're going through PFPs and we have our pitcher throw rhythm fastballs in a PFP session, there's no batter, there's no crowd, there's no nothing, and you're spraying the ball all over the place in a drill situation, you're telling me you don't have the ability to hone back in and get a rhythm fastball for a strike when you need it to. That becomes tough. And so pitchers in catch play, focus on what it is that you're doing, develop feel, understand, don't just go out to go through the throwing program. We talk to our guys all the time. Don't do the drill, look to get better. If you're just doing the drill, you're not getting better. If you're vested in what it is that you're doing and you're looking to execute the drill and execute the drill at a high level consistently, then what you're doing is you're building a fundamental base that will now become a good habit. So when you are at LSU with 10,000 people on a Friday night in the box, right? Like now, when things start to spin out of control on you, you're going to fall back to the good habit. If you don't have that good habit, when it goes crazy, you're going to fall back to that bad habit, and that's who you are as a player. And it's going to manifest itself in that situation. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the hit, but if you chase 3 out of 4 pitches, that's who you are. We shouldn't be chasing those. Force that guy, have strike zone discipline, force him in the zone, or the vice versa. We call that 1-2 fastball. Don't get scared to throw the fastball into the right-hander and you leave it in the left-hander's batter's box. We call the fastball in. You need to be able to execute that pitch. So if you don't have that routine and if you haven't practiced it enough, then when things get hot, you have no chance to be successful.
I know a lot of parents are going to want me to ask this question, as well as obviously their student athletes. I've been to Columbia, I've been to Missouri, I've been through a lot of the SEC. They're beautiful stadiums, and the fans are very engaged. That's a polite way of saying very. The Cajun Riviera at Mississippi State. One of the things I would love for you to discuss is how are you now, as a relatively new staff, year 2 at Missouri, how are you finding student athletes? Is it generally in a specific geographical area? Is it at, your camps? Are you traveling out to tournaments still? That's the gray area for parents. They don't know where and how to capture or get in front of the college coaches. How do they do that at Missouri?
For sure. I mean, we start with our goal is to lock the state down, and here over the next 2 to 3 years, really make sure that we're tapping into the best talent and best skilled players in the state and keeping them in state. And then after that, we expand out to bordering states, and then that includes going to, we go down to Atlanta, right? You got to go to the perfect game tournaments. There's 400 teams in there now. Unfortunately, there's probably only 100 of them, 150 of them that we should be recruiting, but nonetheless. And so we go to these different tournaments, we go to these places. Camp is always the best for me. And the reason why, and we tell guys this all the time, we don't run showcase camps, right? Our camps are evaluation camps. And what I tell them, I said, listen, I'm not evaluating arm strength. I'm not evaluating exit velo. I'm not evaluating running speed. I'm evaluating how you perform in a practice-based environment. We run our camp just like we run a practice day. So we're running you through the same things that we're doing practice in the drills. How coachable are you? Can you make adjustments? Those types of things. Because what I tell the guys is we're going to spend more time with you in practice than we are a game. And because we're going to spend more time with you in practice than a game, then we need to make sure we know who you are from that standpoint.
So, at a camp, are you engaging? So one of the things I try to help parents and athletes understand about, particularly prospect camps, the older boys that are going in hopes, are you engaging in conversation and recruiting type of atmosphere, or are you waiting for the camp to kind of conclude and then pulling certain student athletes aside? What's the proper etiquette for a student to be able to approach Coach Jackson and say, Coach, do I have any chance of being a student athlete here at Missouri?
Yeah, so it obviously depends on the year, right? What year they are, because we're precluded from talking to kids if they're not a certain age. And then we don't have those conversations during camp. We'll have those conversations after camp with the kids that we can speak with about that. Hey, we really like what we saw. We'll be following you. Or, hey, we really like what you saw. We'd like to show you around now that camp is over and you're able to be on campus for to see facilities and those types of things. And so depending upon where the kid sits, that's will determine the type of conversation that we had. And even with some of the younger kids, I'm not speaking out of turn here because I think we all do it. You don't have a direct recruiting conversation, but you definitely let that young man know, hey, man, you're on the list. Like, we really like what we saw from you today. We're definitely going to be following you in the future so that they understand. And then we reach back out to that young man's high school coach and have that conversation with his high school coach. Hey, we really like what Johnny did in camp. We're really interested in him. We'd love to come see him this spring. We'd love to come see him this summer. And when August 1st rolls around, he's going to get a phone call from us.
I'm going to squeeze this question in because I want to kind of continue on that thought basis. The high school coach, the value of the high school experience. I'm not going to go down. I'm not saying that one is better and this is not good. I'm just talking about high school baseball. Can you talk about why it's important for you to get feedback from the high school coach? because of that coach's access to that player over a 3 or 4 year period. They kind of have some insights over and above the athletic side.
100%. That's one of the things that I tell our guys all the time. Hey, 9 times out of 10, we're going to see somebody in Atlanta or in, Hoover or in Florida, and that's perfect, right? And they're going to be there with their summer coach, and that's fine to get that information. But that summer coach is also getting paid $5,000. And there are good dudes out there. Don't get me wrong. They'll shoot you straight. Hey, Johnny's not a guy for you. But then there's other dudes out there that they make their money by being able to justify that $5,000 check, so you can say, oh, well, hey, I got you in touch with Missouri. So I really put a high emphasis on our guys. Hey, reach out to the high school coach. The high school coach may not be the most knowledgeable baseball person in the world, but the high school coach, like you said, has been with little Johnny from his freshman year all the way to his senior. He sees him in the hallway every day. He knows who he is and what he's doing in the classroom, what he's doing in the hallways, how he's thought about. And so that becomes very, very valuable. And then when you do find those high school coaches that do have that upper level of knowledge, and they have had players that have gone on and played at a high level, then you know that you can trust that coach's evaluation and say, okay, this guy's had 15 kids to go play in the SEC. He knows what it looks like. He knows if this guy's a good player or not. And what I love the coaches that say, hey, this guy's not, quote unquote, which I hate this term, an SEC guy, right? But coach, I'm telling you, he can play. And my response to them always, well, then he's an SEC guy, right? An SEC guy is a guy that can do it in SEC. Too many times what we do is we look at the SEC and we're looking for the next Tyler Beede. We're looking for the next Paul Skeet. Those are guys, anywhere. And we try and say, well, that's what an SEC guy is. No, the high percentage of pitchers in the SEC aren't Tyler Beede, Paul Skeens, Fulmer. They're not those dudes. That's not who they are, right? And so you appreciate the coach that says, hey, this kid can play. He's hard-nosed, high fundamental base, high baseball IQ. Coach, I'm telling you right now, he may not be the sexiest, but if you're in the middle of a game, this is a dude that's going to get it done for you. Those are the players that we need because they don't get caught up into the extra. They just go out and play.
I want to end on this question because I think it's really important for parents to understand. When you talked about the old, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Colorado, Missouri, that conference was what I used to call the black and blue division. There was the weather, pick your sport, but it was highly competitive. And now you're starting to see Texas, Oklahoma. The conferences' names may change, but the schools don't. And on that note, I would love for you to share a little bit about what makes Missouri. I mean, you played at Nebraska as a student athlete. You're going into Missouri, now with Texas and Oklahoma part of the SEC. What makes it so special on the Missouri campus to spend those 4 or 5 years now? I don't know if we're going to get that 5th year of eligibility, but those 4 or 5 years on a campus like Missouri, what makes it so special in your eyes as a student athlete?
I think obviously first and foremost is the quality of the degree you're going to get, right? I mean, Missouri is a high academic institution. And so take the baseball side out of it, just getting your degree from Missouri, that network that you're going to have when you go out to be a professional outside of baseball and even in baseball is going to be tremendous. I think then second, we really, really preach the idea of a family atmosphere here, right? Like I tell our kids on a daily basis, my daddy hat never comes off. Right. I am a father. So I have to remember that somebody is giving me their sons and saying, take care of my son and help my son grow up. So I tell our players, I'm going to make the decisions that are in the best interest to help you grow and develop as a man first. But sometimes that may not jive with what you want from a baseball perspective. And so if you want a baseball only experience, go someplace else, because that's not what you're going to get here. You're going to get a whole life experience. And because you're going to dive into that whole life experience, it's going to be the best experience of your entire life outside of getting married, having kids, getting drafted, and getting to the big leagues. And then obviously last, you're playing in the best conference in the country. And so when you have that opportunity, if you think you're that dude, then where you go becomes irrelevant if you have a chance to play against the best. And so as we accumulate those level of players and we're telling those guys, hey, you're going mano a mano against the best. If you're that guy, come here, let's make it happen. And then be part of something that is going to be very special, which is what we're building. We're getting to Omaha, right? Omaha is not a goal for us. It is a destination, and we're going to get there. Now, how fast we get there is going to depend on, I tell our players, how well you play. If you play better, we get there faster. If you don't play better, we don't. It's going to take us time. But ultimately, we're going to get to Omaha, and you can come and be a part of what it is that we're doing, or you can read about it and wish that you were.
Well, I want to let parents know anything and everything to do with the staff, camps, schedules. If you have the ability to get out and watch a game in Columbia, Missouri, go ahead and get yourself some tickets. We're going to be promoting games not only at Missouri, but all across college baseball. College baseball for the younger athletes and families is a tremendous experience. The players are accessible, the coaches are accessible. It's something that can help develop the dream as well as the passion for the sport. You can find all that on the Baseball Blue Book. Also, I want to make sure parents understand if you have the ability to get to a Missouri baseball camp, it will definitely prove to be a work. First of all, it's centrally located to all across the country. It's really great environment in the summer and the fall. You know, if you can kind of tie that in maybe with a football game, but absolutely make sure that you as a prospective student athlete look into the camp opportunities at Missouri. And Coach Jackson, man, you are one heck of a baseball dude and an elite life mentor, and I appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Walter. MIZ.